Halfway through dinner, Scarlett's boyfriend Lucas, who knows nothing about my situation, casually mentioned a news story about a guy who had scammed his wealthy wife for years. Everyone laughed about what an idiot the man was for thinking he could get away with it. Everyone except Connor, who suddenly became very interested in his mashed potatoes. When Lucas asked him what he thought about the story, Connor muttered something about not all relationships being what they seemed on the surface. The table went quiet. I could feel Scarlett looking at me, confused by the sudden tension. I just smiled and asked her to pass the salt. On the drive home, Connor was unusually quiet. When we pulled into our garage, he turned to me with a desperate look and asked if everything was really okay between us. I told him I didn't know what he meant. He said things had felt off for weeks, and he couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. I looked him straight in the eyes and said, "Maybe you should check your conscience if you're feeling that something's wrong." He flinched like I'd slapped him. This morning, I found him going through our wedding album, something he hasn't looked at in years. He claimed he was feeling nostalgic, but the panic in his eyes told a different story. He's trying to find clues about how much I know and what I'm planning to do about it. I've scheduled a meeting with my parents and our family financial advisor for tomorrow. Connor thinks it's about some routine trust matter, but it's actually to formally remove him as a beneficiary from several accounts and discuss the implications of our upcoming divorce. I've already warned my parents to act normal until after the meeting. I'm not even angry anymore. I'm just tired. Tired of the performance. Tired of watching him scramble to maintain his facade. Tired of pretending I don't know our entire marriage has been a business transaction to him. Tonight, Connor suggested we take a second honeymoon to reconnect. He showed me pictures of this ridiculously expensive resort in Bali on his phone, talking about infinity pools and private beaches. The old me would have been thrilled. The new me just wondered how much of my family's money he was planning to spend on this last-ditch effort. I smiled and told him it sounded lovely, but maybe we should talk about it after the meeting with my parents tomorrow. The relief on his face was immediate. He clearly thinks he's still got time to fix whatever's broken. He doesn't realize that by this time tomorrow, his carefully constructed world will be in pieces. The meeting with my parents and the financial advisor is scheduled for 10 a.m. By 11, he'll know I've known everything for weeks. By noon, he'll be faced with the reality that the gravy train has not only stopped, but is reversing course at high speed. Edit Connor just texted, asking if I want sushi for dinner tonight. Says he wants to treat me to something special before our big financial meeting tomorrow. If he only knew. Last update. Hey Reddit family, I want to start by thanking every single one of you who supported me through this journey. Your comments, messages, and advice helped me find strength on days when I felt like I was drowning. I promised a final update when everything was settled, so here it is. The conclusion to my story. So that meeting with my parents and the financial advisor? It went exactly as planned. Connor's face when he realized what was happening is something I'll cherish forever. We all sat down in my dad's home office. Me, Connor, my parents, and Mr. Bradshaw, our family's financial advisor. Since I was a kid, Connor was all smiles, probably thinking this was his chance to cement his position in the family finances. Dad started by asking Connor if there was anything he wanted to tell us before we began. Connor looked confused but said no. Everything was great. Dad nodded, then pulled out a folder containing printouts of Connor's secret withdrawals from our joint account, screenshots of text messages to Dee about the long-term plan, and the CPA DeGrasse transcript of the phone call I'd overheard where he called our marriage a nightmare. You should have seen Connor's face. It was like watching someone's entire world collapse in slow motion. He went from confused to shocked to panicked to calculating in about 10 seconds flat. He immediately tried to claim it was all a misunderstanding, that he'd been going through a rough time and had said things he didn't mean. Mom, who had been quietly seething since I told her everything, finally lost it. She called him a gold-digging parasite and said she'd never been so disappointed in her judgment of character. Connor actually tried to appeal to her, saying they'd always had such a special bond and that she knew the real him. My mom just laughed and asked, "Which version is the real him?" The one who called his marriage a nightmare, or the one who cried during his vow renewal? The meeting ended with Mr. Bradshaw explaining that Connor had been formally removed from all family accounts, trusts, and business interests. Dad informed him that divorce papers would be delivered to him that afternoon, and that he had 24 hours to remove his personal belongings from our house. Connor's final play was turning to me with tears in his eyes. Actual tears. The man deserves an Emmy. And asking if I was really going to throw away 3 years of marriage over one stupid conversation. I looked him straight in the eyes and told him I wasn't throwing away anything. He already did that when he decided I was nothing but a cash ticket. The divorce process itself was surprisingly quick. It turns out that when one party has overwhelming evidence that the other entered the marriage under fraudulent pretenses, and said party has the resources for good lawyers, things can move efficiently. Connor fought it at first, demanding half of everything, including future interests in my family's business. His initial counteroffer was so outrageous, even his own lawyer looked embarrassed. But his position weakened considerably when my team presented the evidence. The unexplained withdrawals, the hidden accounts we discovered, and, most damning of all, the recordings of him admitting he'd married me for financial gain. In the end, he walked away with significantly less than he'd hoped for, though still more than he deserved, in my opinion. The most satisfying moment came during our final mediation session, when Connor's lawyer brought up his significant contributions to building my career and supporting my family's business interests.